Refaat Alareer was a Palestinian intellectual, academic, and poet who was born in Shija'iyya neighborhood in Gaza City in 1979 and who was killed by an Israeli airstrike on his sister's home on December 6, 2023. Although he was killed at a very young age, he left a huge legacy. He edited two books, Gaza Writes Back and Gaza Unsilenced, and he contributed dozens of articles, um, features, reports, journal articles, poems that he published on various websites. He was known for his activism on Twitter. So he would tweet out of Gaza in English. He chose to stay in the north of Gaza in his town, Shija'iyya, after Israel asked Palestinians to evacuate to tell his story. This is what Rifat was doing throughout his life. Storytelling was his passion. And when I got to know him for the first time in 2007 as one of his students at the English department at the Islamic University of Gaza, he was equally excited and involved in storytelling. He asked us to write stories about our life under occupation, and he made us believe that every one of us has a story that deserves to be told. He wanted to challenge the mainstream narrative about Palestinians by getting Palestinians to tell their own stories. And to do so, he even asked some of his students to create Twitter accounts and tweet in English about Palestine as part of their homework. In his class, he was global. He taught us about Malcolm X, John Donne, which he made the topic of his PhD dissertation as a revolutionary poet. So he was very much invested in revolution and revolutionary writers and poets, and he wanted to create a revolution by training young people how to tell their stories. And he paid the price for that. He challenged Israel's narrative, and in one of the last interviews he made out of Gaza, he said he will throw the expo marker that he has at home as an academic at Israeli soldiers when they break into Palestinian homes. He described the destruction that he saw to me just 2 days before he was killed. He sent me a few lines describing the destruction that he saw in the western part of Gaza City, saying that it's similar to the destruction caused due to the Second World War. Rifat was a committed intellectual and writer who was also present on the ground. He was not in his ivory tower, lecturing people and telling them what to do. He took the initiative to be present and to defend the Palestinian narrative. He would always quote an African proverb that says, "Until lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." So his legacy today is huge. He trained hundreds, if not thousands, of young people on how to tell their story, how to narrate Palestine in English. Most of his writings are in English, and he wanted to change the stereotype image that people have about Gaza and Palestinians. And he wanted to do that by taking the initiative himself. He was able to stay, elsewhere, teach elsewhere. He was well educated, and I think many schools would want him to be part of their staff. But he chose Gaza, and this was his commitment until the last day of his life. Gaza was his investment, and he ran different social media accounts, including This is Gaza, and his blog was also called In Gaza, My Gaza, where he published his poems and writings before starting to publish elsewhere in books and journal articles and on different alternative websites. So I was his student, but I was lucky enough to live with him for a few weeks in his apartment in Malaysia. We traveled together on the same flight to Malaysia. We traveled together to the United States to promote Gaza Rights Back. I was one of the contributors. He encouraged me to write a short story about my brother who was killed by Israel. And I was lucky enough to be part of the speaking tour and to travel with Refaat for about 1 month to different states and cities in the United States, where I got to know him closely. We did more travel in Malaysia, and I got to know his sense of humor. He had a very dark sense of humor. He was multi-talented. Rifat was someone who watched all types of drama series and movies, and he read all types of novels and books. So he was also interested in football and sports. So you find him everywhere. He was a man of life and joy, always laughing and spreading laughter and love and joy, using his talent and wit to make people around him cheer and laugh. So a lot of people remember him for that. And he was not like the tough, although he was tough in his class as an academic, but he was also joyful and cheerful. It was not easy on grades. He wouldn't give grades easily to students because he wanted his students to work really hard, and he would give us like extra homework to read novels, and like in return he would give us extra grades, but we had to work very hard to get these to earn these grades. So this was Rifat, not just like a teacher, a mentor, but also a friend, someone who would bully us for not working hard, for not applying for scholarships, someone who would support us and to apply for scholarships and to improve ourselves and write recommendations for us to get jobs. So he was a remarkable intellectual and writer and academic who will be remembered for years to come. I think Rifat's legacy will take years to be studied and understood. He knew what he was doing, and as I said, I always remember him as um, someone like rushing somewhere with a book under his elbow, trying to catch another appointment, to give another lecture, to speak to another group of students in Gaza. So this was his dedication, storytelling, and training people on creative writing and storytelling and the use of social media. Um, and he always made sure that his students have the time and the feedback they needed. They made us. He made us feel very special every time we met him. He would give us, like feedback, ask us about the latest updates in our lives, and try to encourage us to do, engage in another project. He was engaged in multiple projects about Gaza, translations, social media, um, writing. And always wondered how he found the time to do all of this. He always found the time to do multiple things at the same time. You would find him like in a lecture, listening to a lecture himself, but at the same time having 20 windows and working on editing a file or reading another book. He would like multitask. And I think this was the key or the secret how he was able to accomplish so much at a very young age. Um, I'm very honored to have known Rifat as, first of all, his student, but also his friend. And I remember him always. Every day I see him in the legacy he created, in the seeds he planted in Gaza, in his students, in his writings, and in kites all over the world that people fly in memory and in honor of Rifat. Rifat is an idea, and I think his legacy will continue. And Israel would never succeed by killing Rifat, because there are thousands of Rifat now who will carry the torch and tell the story that he wanted to tell out of Gaza. Um, and I just want to share one last memory I had with Rifat. As I said, he was always a person of humor. Uh, and when we traveled to Washington, D.C. in 2014, he he loved Shakespeare, and there was actually a student of Rifat who made a joke that Rifat keeps Hamlet, the novel, under his pillow when he sleeps, to suggest that Rifat was in much love with Shakespeare, and Rifat would laugh when he heard the story. And in 2014, he visited the Shakespeare Museum that was set up to mark 400 years since the birth of Shakespeare. Um, and as I said, every time he went to, he would like leave a mark. So in Malaysia, we traveled to Malacca city, and he found two cats, and he named them copy and paste because they were identical. They were twins. In Washington D.C. as well, he loved an armchair at a friend's house, and we named it Rifat's chair. So every time I go there, I take a picture and I send it to him, and he would laugh. Um, and in just about a year ago, I was in Bellingham, and we also visited Bellingham 10 years ago. And he left his computer mouse at a friend's house, and he asked me to check if that friend got 1,000 mice now. So he always like made sure that he laughs and he cracks jokes. So this is how I remember him, a man of life and joy.